All right, let's get one thing straight before the internet starts foam fighting in the comments. Slash's guitar tone was never just one sound. Not on Appetite, not on the Illusion tours, not in Velvet Revolver, not with Myles Kennedy. And if you've ever tried to dial in the Slash preset and wondered why it still doesn't feel right, yeah, that's because there isn't one. Slash is a moving target. Different eras, different guitars, different amps, different bands, different production choices, but the same DNA every time. The same sense of danger, the same melodic instinct, the same bends that sound like the string is about to snap but somehow survives. And that wide vocal vibrato that makes a single note feel like a chorus. So today, we're doing this properly. We're going through Slash's eras, his tone philosophy, the actual gear that shaped each chapter, and the Les Paul story people love to simplify into one sentence. And no, we're not doing the boring version where it's just Les Paul into Marshall next. We're doing the version that actually explains why he sounds like Slash. Let's start where the tone really begins. Hands, not logos. Slash lives in the minor pentatonic, sure, but he doesn't play it like a scale exercise. He plays it like a conversation with teeth. He drags notes, he leans into bends, and he lets notes hang just long enough to make you feel tension before he resolves it. He doesn't spray notes to impress you, he plants them like a threat. And the vibrato is everything. A lot of players do vibrato. Slash does it like a vocalist losing control. It's wide, emotional, and confident. Combine that with his timing, and suddenly even basic licks sound iconic. That's why you can give 10 guitarists the same rig, and one of them will still sound like a tribute band. Now, Appetite for Destruction. This is the myth factory. This is where people think the entire Slash tone story begins and ends. Here's the truth. The guitar that defined Appetite wasn't a real 1959 burst. It was a Derrig-built replica of a '59 Les Paul standard. That's the workhorse vibe behind that era. And this matters because it explains why the tone is vintage flavored, but not literally a museum guitar. Then the amp side. Appetite's core dirty sound is tied to a rented Marshall Super Lead, the famous SIR, number 36 head, with mods that helped push it into that aggressive mid-forward roar without turning into fizzy nonsense. That's the engine. That's the bite. But here's where the one sound myth already collapses. Clean tones weren't just turn down the volume knob. Slash used the Roland JC 120 Jazz Chorus in the studio for pristine, hard-edged cleans. So even on Appetite, it's already a palette. Dirty Marshall roar, clean JC 120 clarity, and the hands tying it together. And pickups? This is where guitar nerds need specifics. A huge part of the Slash identity is the Seymour Duncan Alnico 2 Pro humbuckers. Warm, smooth, mid-forward, sweet top end, and sustained for days without ice pick harshness. You want that singing lead tone that doesn't rip your ears off? That pickup family is a big reason. Now we move into the Use Your Illusion era, where Slash's sound gets bigger, more cinematic, more stadium ready. This is where you see his Les Paul world become a full-on character roster, not just a Les Paul. Jessica is a major one. A late 80s Gibson Les Paul standard in a honey-burst finish that becomes a main stage workhorse. That tells you everything about Slash's mindset. He's not loyal to hype. He's loyal to the guitar that survives the battlefield and feels right under the fingers night after night. Then Victoria, the gold top story. The original gets stolen, and later a replica is built to match it. That's not collector behavior. That's player behavior. When a guitar becomes part of your muscle memory, you rebuild it if you have to. Illusion is also where the Slash only plays Les Paul's crowd gets exposed. He used a 1961 Gibson SG in his world. He brought out a 1959 Flying V for songs like Live and Let Die and Knockin' on Heaven's Door live. He's also been associated with brighter, more aggressive guitars like an Explorer for certain tones. The point is, Slash uses what works. The Les Paul is the home base, not the prison. Amp-wise, this era is not just Appetite Part 2. A big player is the Marshall JCM 802-203. including the famous SIR number 34 modded head. That's a different kind of punch. Tighter, more immediate. You can feel the rhythm guitar hit harder. The lead tone has more bite. And alongside that, you still have clean platforms like the Roland JC120 showing up when the production needs precision and separation. Now let's talk about the amp that becomes Slash's long-term identity. The Marshall Silver Jubilee, the JCM2555. This thing is a cornerstone. It's got that smooth top end, a rich mid-range, and enough gain to sing without turning into fizzy mush. It sits under vocals perfectly. It's angry without being harsh. And Slash has leaned on this sound for decades, to the point where it basically became part of his DNA. So when people say Slash tone, they often mean Les Paul into Silver Jubilee. But even that is still not one sound, because how he uses that platform changes with the era. Now pedals. We're not doing vague, we're naming names. Slash's wah isn't a wah. It's the Dunlop Cry Baby wah, and it's part of his phrasing. Not decoration, it's punctuation. It's how he shapes certain notes like a voice. Over the years, he's had signature crybaby models, but the core idea stays the same. The wah is a tool for expression, not a gimmick. You also see classic effects that actually do work without turning him into a pedalboard guitarist. MXR Phase 90 for movement. MXR Analog Chorus for that glossy sheen on certain clean and layered parts. Boss DD 3 digital delay to add space without washing out articulation. Boss GE 7 EQ to shape the mid-range and keep the guitar sitting exactly where he wants it. And here's a deep detail a lot of people miss. Cable length. Slash's stage setups often involve long cable runs, and long cables naturally roll off some top end. That helps darken and thicken the tone in a way people sometimes try to fix with buffers. Slash doesn't always want it fixed. That roll-off is part of why his tone is thick and vocal instead of razor bright. Now we hit the post-Guns era, Snakepit and the Survival years. This is where the tone gets raw again. More straight-ahead rock aggression, less stadium polish. Same vocabulary, but the emphasis shifts. The riffs get meaner, the leads get a bit more reckless. It's still Les Paul and Marshall land, but you can hear the attitude evolving. It's like Slash is reminding everyone he's not just the Appetite guy. He's a lifelong rock guitarist. Then Velvet Revolver happens, and the sound tightens. It's darker, punchier, more modern in presentation without losing the classic core. The Silver Jubilee remains a major foundation. But this is also where the studio approach becomes even more. Use the right tool for the job. A Vox AC30 can show up when you need chime and bite in a mix. A Fender Tweed Champ-style small amp can show up when you want raw, immediate mid-range without a giant wall of low end. That's producer thinking again. Different amps for different jobs, not one rig for every song. All right, quick pause. If you're still here, you're our kind of people. Guitar Gangsters isn't about worshiping legends like statues. It's about breaking down why their sound mattered, what choices built it, and what separates real tone from internet cosplay. If you want more deep dives like this, hit like and subscribe. It seriously helps the channel more than you think. All right, back to Slash. Now let's deal with the Les Paul lineup you dropped in the image, because this is where we need to be accurate and not accidentally spread the wrong idea. Slash himself is overwhelmingly a Gibson guy on stage and in the studio. That's the real-world weaponry. The Epiphone Slash models exist mainly as the fan access versions of the Slash vibe. They're signature releases that let normal humans get close to the look and feel without custom shop money. So when we mention Epiphone here, we're not saying Slash toured with this exact Epiphone. We're saying this is the accessible version of a Slash-era aesthetic and spec direction. That's important because gear nerds will call you out if you blur that line. So what are we really looking at in that lineup? We're looking at Slash's tone eras turned into a product family. You've got the Snakepit era vibe represented in signature releases. You've got the dark tobacco sunburst mood that screams smoky clubs and late-night solos. You've got classic tobacco burst standards that represent his home base identity. You've got the gold tops because gold top Slash is a whole mood and a whole chapter. And you've got the appetite for destruction model that tries to bottle the Derek replica mythology into something you can actually buy in the modern world. On the Gibson side, those instruments represent the lane Slash has lived in for decades. Gibson USA and Gibson Custom Shop as the primary platform for his tone identity. On the Epiphone side, it's the gateway for fans who want to get in the neighborhood without selling a kidney. And across all of them, pickups remain a huge part of the story. Seymour Duncan Alnico. Two pro humbuckers are one of the most consistent threads in the Slash universe. Warm mids, smooth highs, and that vocal sustain. There are also hotter signature evolutions for players who need more push live, but the Alnico 2 voice is the classic Slash sings ingredient. Now let's land the real reason Slash still sounds like Slash even when the guitar changes and the amp changes and the band changes. Because the one sound is not gear. It's phrasing. It's how he attacks a note. It's how he bends into it. It's how he holds it, shakes it, and resolves it. It's the fact that he can make a simple melody sound like a headline. That's why you can hear him with Guns, with Velvet Revolver, with Myles Kennedy and the Conspirators, and the identity stays intact even as the production and gear choices evolve. The tone changes, but the voice remains. So here's the question that decides whether you're a real tone nerd or just a collector of presets. If you had to pick one Slash era as the definitive tone, which one is it? Is it the Appetite era Derek-style Les Paul into the modded Marshall roar? The Illusion era big stage sound with JCM 800 punch and the Silver Jubilee Foundation? The darker Velvet Revolver tightness? Or the modern solo era balance where he can cover everything from classic bite to huge arena sustain? Drop your answer in the comments and don't just name the era. Tell me why. What changed for you? The guitar, the amp, the production, the feel, the attitude? And if you want a part 2 where we go even deeper into his live rig evolution, how he actually uses the Dunlop Crybaby for phrasing, and what matters if you're trying to get Slash sustain without drowning in gain, write part 2 in the comments and tell us which era to start with. And if this gave you value, hit like, subscribe, and stick with us. Next Thursday, we're back with a new guitar legend, and we're going deep again. This is Guitar Gangsters.